Welcome, Homer Flynn. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, nice to be here, Sean. Yeah.
So, for the people watching, obviously you probably know something about the residents, but Homer's been a spokesman for the residents for many, many years, and obviously is part of the Cryptic Corporation and Ralph Records as well, I believe.
Yeah, the Crypto Corporation took over kind of management of the residents really in 1976.
Oh, I
And,
see.
uh, originally there were four of us with Cryptic, but at this point I'm the only one left.
Oh, right. So how did the band get together? Because it was originally an art collective, wasn't it?
What was that?
Sorry. So the band was originally an art collective. How did they all get together originally?
Well, they were, they're all from Louisiana, all from
Uh-huh.
North Louisiana. And they were friends back there,
Hmm.
and ultimately they kind of separately, one at a time, moved to California, and they reconnected. Um, they were always big music fans. They loved music,
Hmm.
and so ultimately. Uh, they were not really all that great of musicians, but really enjoyed playing around and making music. And ultimately, for them, the recording studio is their primary instrument,
Hmm.
and they came to the realization that even though they couldn't really play very well, they could go into the studio and start recording multi-track compositions, and they could get something that they liked, that they thought was interesting, and ultimately that was kind of the motivating factor in them getting more serious about it and making music.
How did the name The Residents come about?
Oh, well, that's a curious story. Um, they were living in San Mateo, California,
Mhm.
which is about 25 or 30 miles south of San Francisco. And they were experimenting around, doing a lot of crazy stuff. They were dropouts. They were taking drugs, doing crazy stuff. And ultimately read an article in the New York Times, I mean, sorry, in a Rolling Stone, about Captain Beefheart
Hmm.
wanting to go on tour, and they were big Beefheart fans,
Yeah.
and they saw that when Beefheart decided to go on tour, he was with Warner Brothers at that time. He didn't go to the A&R people at Warner Brothers. He
Hmm.
went to a guy named Hal Halverstadt. And Hal Halverstadt, I'm pretty sure was like the marketing director for Warner Brothers at that time. So ultimately, they felt like, well, if it's good enough for Captain Beefheart, it's good enough for us. So what they did was they created an ad for themselves that was very similar to the kinds of ads that Warner Brothers Records was putting in Rolling Stone and other magazines at that time. And the whole idea was that they thought they would sell themselves to Hal Halverstadt. And they sent that to him, and it had a little coupon along with it. This was all handmade
Hmm.
stuff. And um, the coupon had four boxes you could check. One was like, "Oh, you sound fantastic. Here's a check for $50,000." And another one said, "Oh, well, thanks for reaching out, but we're really busy right now. We have a lot of other groups." And then one said, "Send uh, demos and or tapes to," and he wrote in Hal Halverstadt with his address, and they totally flipped out. Uh, so they didn't really have anything to send him, but they had a whole lot of experimental tapes that they had made. So they went to work, editing and overdubbing and doing stuff like crazy, and made a tape, which they called the Warner Brothers album.
Right.
And they sent that to Hal Halverstadt. Um, he got it. He then sent it back to them. Well, they didn't have a name at that point.
Hmm.
Uh, they had all kind of ideas. They were tossing it around. And when he sent that back to them, he sent it to residents
Ah.
at 167 and a half 17th Avenue, San Mateo, California. And they went, oh, okay, that's it. That's our name. So anyway, the name came from this guy Hal Halverstadt at Warner Brothers Records.
Right. Well, they started off in the studio. How long before they started to play live?
Well, that stuff with Hal Halverstadt, that was probably around 1970, 71, something like
Oh, I
that.
see. Yeah.
And and they were living in San Mateo at that point. Um, they decided, okay, we have to get more serious about this. We need our own studio in San Francisco, and so shortly after that, they moved to San Francisco,
Mhm.
and that was when they had their Sycamore Street studio. And so for the next 10 years, from the early 70s to the early 80s, they were strictly recording.
Yeah.
But they felt all along that in one way or another, they wanted to be able to play live.
Hmm.
And so ultimately, their first live show was the Mole Show, and that was around 1982 or 83, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
So yeah, ultimately they were 10 years strictly as a studio act before they actually could start performing. And a lot of what happened, the residents are very technology oriented,
Yeah.
uh, but at the same time, they love to play around with technology, but in a crude way.
Right.
Uh, and they just felt like they couldn't play. They knew they couldn't play, but at the same time, they couldn't get the sound that they wanted. And it wasn't really until the emulator came out.
Hmm.
The emulator, which was one of the first, I guess, digital musical instruments. It was certainly one of the first ones that was cheap enough that the residents could afford to buy one. And so the thing with the emulator, it worked with floppy disks. And so
Yes.
any sound that you could record, you could put on a floppy disk and you could put it in the emulator. So what it amounted to was at that point, the sounds that they were creating in the studio, they could have played on a musical instrument.
Right.
And before that, they were just like having to play regular keyboards and guitars and whatever. And they just felt like, they weren't good enough musicians for that to be able to work. But with the emulator, they were actually able to perform music the way they wanted to.
Right. Okay. They've always wore sort of disguises or masks and costumes on stage. Was that to keep up a certain mystique, or is that, do you think there's an element of shyness there as well?
I think it's a little bit of both. I
Hmm.
mean, but there's also, they were big fans of music. They saw that when people would get popular, the paparazzi would surround them, um, and ultimately they really wanted to feel like they had distance and space between their private lives, their personal lives,
Mm.
and their public persona of the residents. And so by creating uh, a faceless image, they were able to create that distance, a faceless anonymous image. They were able to create that distance and maintain that separation. But also, too, for them, it was very important that they really liked the idea of a group.
Yeah.
Uh, and they would get albums from all these people, and it seemed like everybody in the group was competing to see how many times they could have their name listed on the album cover, or how many times they could have their picture and whatever. And they didn't
Mm.
like that. They wanted to be known as a group, and so by putting all of their identity chips into the residents,
Yeah.
um, they could establish themselves more strictly as a group.
Right, I see. Um, about the costumes. So obviously the one that people think of straight away is going to be the big eyeball head with the tuxedo and stuff like that. So
Right.
where did the idea come from, and how did you make all that?
Um, you know, th- Originally they wanted a completely different faceless image of some kind
Right.
for each new project, and they were doing that, and then they got to time to start promoting and packaging their Eskimo album, and they wanted something really different.
Mm.
So, I'm really their primary visual person. So they came to me and they had this idea of creating like a silver globe, almost
Mm.
like a Christmas ornament, but big enough to go over your head. And they wanted this silver globe with a top hat on it as their image for Eskimo. And so I went down to LA where they have, a lot of professional costume people, and I went down there with this idea. Yeah, I need to get some masks made that are like silver globes with top hats. And everybody said, no, 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 that'll never work. That'll never work. They said, it'll fog up on the inside and you won't be able to see. It'll
Mm.
be hard to breathe in there. It'll be hard to hear. It just will never work. So I took that idea back to the residents, and they kind of thought about it for a while. And then ultimately then came up with the idea of the eyeball.
Mm.
And um, realistically, the eyeball is not much better than the silver globe in terms of, I mean, at least it has a little porthole in the front.
Mm.
So, with black mesh over it. So they could see out. Hearing is very compromised. It's hard to breathe in one of those things for very long.
Mm.
Um, But anyway, but that's where it came from.
Didn't one get stolen after one of your shows once?
Actually, one has been stolen twice.
Oh, really?
Um, they played at a club in LA. I think it was around the holidays. It was 1985,
Hmm.
and this club was an old vaudeville house.
Mm.
um, from back in the 20s and 30s or something like that. So backstage was a spiral staircase,
Mhm.
and the spiral staircase went up to dressing rooms, one floor, another floor, another floor. So they were in a dressing room, and then right in another one right by there was like a green room.
Mhm.
So after the show, they were all in the green room. What happened was somebody snuck out of the green room
Mm.
into the dressing room, found an eyeball, went up those spiral staircases to another empty dressing room, found an open window and dropped it.
Oh,
They dropped it into a debris box down below.
right.
And so after the show, everybody's packing up and getting ready to go, and it's like an eyeball's missing, an eyeball's missing, and so nobody could figure out how anybody could have gotten out of that place with it. But you can't put it in your coat. It's huge.
Mm.
And so what happened was we got a call. The Cryptic Corporation got a call about a week or 2 weeks later from somebody who said that a friend of his had
Mm.
stolen the ball and he had stolen it back and wanted to return it to the residents. And he also said, by the strangest coincidence, his father had given him two plane tickets to San Francisco for Christmas.
Right.
So he was going to get the restolen eyeball and then fly it up and bring it back, which he did. And so we actually that one was returned. We actually got that one back.
Yeah.
But then, like I say, that was like 1985. So about 10 years ago, um, I was out of town, with my wife and children celebrating my birthday. And I had, there was a museum that wanted to use the eyeball in a show.
Hmm.
And then this museum show around, traveled around the East Coast. It went to Europe. It was in Australia. And so the people who still had it were returning it, but they didn't tell me that they were returning it until it was already being shipped. And
Right.
so FedEx brings it back to my house and just leaves it on
Hmm.
the front landing, and somebody stole it. And that one we've never heard any other word of. Uh,
Ah,
yeah, it's too bad. I, my,
yeah.
my my biggest fear is that whoever stole it didn't know what was there. They just saw this big box, this big sitting on the landing outside of our house, and thought maybe it's like expensive equipment or something. And
Yeah.
then they get it, and then they open it up and they go, what is this? And just threw it away. Uh, but I don't know. That's just speculation on my part.
Yeah, I mean, shame if it doesn't turn up on, some sort of like eBay or something like that. It'd be nice, wouldn't it, if it just appeared
Well, you would
again?
you would think if it unless it got thrown away and it wound up in the dump, you would think
Yeah.
it would show up somewhere. It's a obviously very distinctive thing, and a lot of people know what it is. And maybe it will still show up. Who knows? But I don't have much hope at this point.
Yeah. Going back to the shows, there's a lot of choreography on stage. So did the band ever hire a choreographer, or did they have a background in sort of dance and that sort of thing?
Well, the residents really enjoy dancers. They enjoy having dancers involved whenever they can, and so um, their tour in 1985, which was the 13th anniversary tour. They had two dancers working with them and and dancing a lot with eyeball and top hats on.
Hmm.
Uh, and they were dancers. They were really good. Did their own choreography. Um, the God in Three Persons
Hmm.
performance, which had a world premiere at the Museum of Modern Art in about 2020 or 2021. Um, you know, there was the primary character of that performance is a guy named Mr. X,
Hmm.
and so the way they did that performance is that God in Three Persons is kind of like a an album length monologue set to music,
Yeah.
and so when they did the performance, the resident who performed Mr. X, you know, he's wearing a Mr. X costume and performing the monologue. Meanwhile, there is a dancer dressed exactly like him, almost like his shadow.
Hmm.
Uh, and they worked out a lot of choreography together too. So uh, yeah, it really depends. But they do like dance and dancers and have worked with several choreographers.
Right. Okay. How does the songwriting, or how did the songwriting work in the band? Was there sort of a leader that sort of, guided the rest, or was it very sort of collaborative?
Um, it's primarily collaborative. I
Yeah.
mean, they have different ones will take the lead at times on different projects.
Yeah.
Uh, sometimes somebody just feels really passionate about a certain project and they take the lead. Uh, but they're very collaborative with everything they do.
Right. So obviously, Ardy passed sadly, and he described himself as being a major part of the creative process. Was he really missed after that, or did you manage to sort of, you know, find a new way to work?
Were you talking about Hardy?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Um, yeah, Hardy was very involved. I
Yeah.
mean, Hardy was primarily um, the residence producer.
Yeah.
Uh, he was primarily their producer. He was also an arranger,
Yeah.
um, and, and he also did some composing too. And they were when Hardy uh, sort of unexpectedly retired, and
Yeah.
then sadly died 2 years later. Um, yeah, it definitely threw a wrinkle into the residents and how they planned on moving forward. But ultimately, Eric Drew Philman, you know, Eric has worked with a whole lot of different people. Uh, he was Snakefinger's band leader. He was actually Captain Beefheart's band leader at one time.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they were friends with Eric. Not very close, but they were friends. And they didn't realize that Eric was also a producer, a music producer.
Hmm.
And so somehow one conversation came along and they were talking to Eric and said that yeah, that, they were looking for a new producer, and he said, well, I'd be interested in trying that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so they then gave him a shot at it, and they were shocked. Um, it's like Hardy's Hardy's sensibilities, his values were so distinct and appropriate to the residents. They felt like it would be impossible to reproduce that.
Yeah.
But Eric just slipped right in. Uh, it was very surprising in a lot of ways that Eric did so well. In a lot of ways, I think they learned a lot of.
Hello.
Get into an artist's head,
Mhm.
figure out what their values are, and enhance those values.
Yeah.
And Eric was certainly a Residents fan. He knew what their values were, and so he was able to then, reproduce a lot of their values, uh, you know, without Hardy, and everybody was extremely happy with it. I mean, and yeah, Eric's done a great job.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Snakefinger, so how did that collaboration come together? Because that really changed the sound of the Residents, doesn't it?
Yeah. This is when the Residents were still in San Mateo,
Yeah.
and one of them had a girlfriend who had gone to the UK, and she came back and saying, "Hey, I met this really interesting musician. I think you guys would really get along with him. Great." And everybody went, "Oh, yeah, 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 sure, sure." Um, and then a few months later, he showed up, and to everybody's great surprise, they just connected.
Mm.
They just had an instant connection. And also too, like as I said, the residents were not really great musicians, but he Philip Snakefinger really understood their aesthetics, their values,
Mm.
and and understood how even though he was a great musician, he understood how they could work with multi-track recording and create stuff that was really interesting and unique, and he wanted to contribute to that. So when he started, he then, from their point of view, he gave them a lot of credibility by coming in and playing these beautiful parts over their crazy, wacky, multi-track improvisations, whatever. And and yeah, he was in a lot of ways, he was a big boost of confidence for them. The fact that he accepted them so strongly and reinforced what they did.
Yeah. Are there any people that you wanted to collaborate with, but it never happened as a band?
Um, well, I think there are probably a lot of people that the residents would like to or would have loved to have collaborate with had they had the opportunity. I
Yeah.
mean, they're huge Sun Ra fans,
Mm.
and they would probably have loved to have collaborated with Sun Ra. As a matter of fact, one of them actually met Sun Ra. Um, Sun Ra he was he lived in New York for a while and then Philadelphia for a while, but he would come out to the Bay Area, and he had, I don't know, half a dozen, seven or eight, hardcore people that were really his longtime collaborators, and he would bring them, but then he would bring a whole bunch of additional costumes, and the longer he would be here, the bigger his group got, and
Right.
uh, and there was I can't think of the guy's name. There was a guy who was a supporter of the group Ant Farm.
Right.
Uh, and they were shooting, this guy wanted to shoot a film on Sunrise. I think it's Space is the Place, I think it's the film. And they shot a lot of that here. And they did some kind of scene where they were in a cafe or a restaurant somewhere.
Mm.
And this one resident, he got picked to be an extra and be a waiter. So he got to be Sunrise waiter in this film.
Brilliant. I suppose Captain Beefheart would have been another one, wouldn't he? He'd have been an ideal person to collaborate with.
Yeah, he would have been. There are also really big Ennio Morricone fans. They would
Mm,
probably love to have been able to collaborate with Ennio Morricone. They're big Moondog fans,
mhm.
so Moondog would have been an extremely interesting collaborator for the residents.
You mentioned technologies. Do you sometimes get, every time I saw like an history of synth music, electronic music basically, they always talk about bands like Depeche Mode and people like that. But you were making, as a band, you were making electronic music, long before then in the sort of late 60s, early 70s, weren't you? A type of electronic music.
Well, yeah. I mean, once again, the residents' taste was incredibly broad,
Yeah,
and they knew that they couldn't make music in a traditional way,
yeah,
but by bringing in and from their point of view, music had a very broad definition,
yeah.
and they were every bit as much into sound. I mean, if you listen to Eskimo has music in it, but it's really a sound piece. And the Eskimo band, the music, is one of the sounds that they played around with.
Hmm.
And so yeah, they were into electronics as early as they could be because they realized it would broaden the palette of what it was they could do.
Yeah. What do you think about the way modern music's, especially sort of live shows? Because I'm not sure what it's like in the US, but in the UK, a lot of live venues have closed down recently, over the last sort of 15 years. And it's getting more and more difficult to get them filled with people, the ones that are left. People just aren't really going to see live shows anymore. Is that the same over in the US?
Um, I don't really know. I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, I don't. I used to go to a lot of live music. I don't really go to that much anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, if I go to something now, it's going to be something that's pretty special. Do you know Richard Marriott? You know who Richard Marriott is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I say I don't go out that much, and I just went to one of Richard's shows within about the last week, and Richard he did. Scoring for two Buster Keaton movies. And,
Right.
movies were silent, so he did original scores for those.
Yeah.
And and I just saw those, like I said, about a week ago, and they were great. I mean, he did a spectacular job, and those shows were well attended. But I'll be able to answer this. The residents will be touring in January,
Oh,
and
right.
I'll have a better response for that question after that tour. Hopefully people will turn out for it, but we'll see.
Is that going to be an international tour or is it just going to be the
Yeah,
US?
yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Uh, in January, I don't know, they're doing about 20 or 25 shows in America
Yeah.
uh, in January, and then they have some shows booked at the Blue Note in Tokyo. Um, They will be there, I think, in late February, maybe early March,
Hmm.
and then later March, I think they'll be in Europe.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Let me know when you get to Glasgow.
What's that?
Let me know if you were going to go to Glasgow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
One last question, if that's all right. So obviously, the band's kept up this sort of mystique, and no one knows us in the band and all that sort of thing. Has that sometimes been a disability? Do you think? Has it sometimes sort of, in terms of publicity, has that been a bad thing sometimes?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Sorry, I speak too fast. The fact that we don't know who's in the residence, has that sometimes been a bad thing for publicity at times?
Well, it has certainly worked. Actually, in some ways, it has worked for them. In some ways, it's worked against them.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, the whole idea of the mystique, the group, uh, and the group being anonymous and having all these different disguises, that has been very beneficial from
Mm.
a PR point of view. But then there are people that will only talk to a member of the band. You
Mm.
know, we've had requests from CNN and major news outlets like that, and they wouldn't do it if unless the band would talk to them. So in that way, it kind of worked against them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the chat. I was going to ask you actually, I don't know if it's cheeky or not, but there was a rumor that George Harrison was involved with the band in the early days because he did that with the Residents album. Have you got anything to say about the George Harrison rumors? Can I just ask you that one thing?
Who is that?
There was a rumor in the early days that George Harrison was involved with the band, and I know I don't want to ask you outright if that's true or not, but was
Um, honestly, I don't know. I'm not familiar with him.
George
It,
Harrison
it's,
from the Beatles?
oh, George Harrison. George Harrison. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite get it.
If you'd rather not
Well,
say,
there were a lot of rumors early
yeah.
on that the residents were, in fact, the Beatles.
Mm.
Having fun in disguises and whatever. And of course, the residents love that. As far as they're concerned, any mythology or any false statement or whatever, they're ready to enlarge it. They love to have people believing all kind of crazy stuff about them.
Right.
The reality is that they're mainly pretty boring. Um,
Yes. Well, you've been making some great music over the years, and I mean, you were one of the pioneers of multimedia as well, weren't you? With bands, you were bringing out multimedia products before many other bands did.
Indeed, the residents were had videos that they had done, in the 70s
Yeah.
that were in heavy rotation on MTV in the beginning,
Yeah.
um, mainly because there wasn't very much on MTV, and the residents had stuff. So yeah, they were early pioneers. A lot of their early videos are in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art.
Right. Amazing. Okay, well, they can find out about the tour in January from the is it Ralph Records website or the Cryptic Corporation website? Sorry,
So,
Mike, I speak too fast. Where can they find out about the tour dates when
oh,
they get? Would that be the
just
Cryptic?
just keep up with the residence.com, residence website, and it will
Yeah,
be there. Yeah.
excellent. Well, thanks again for the chat, Homer. You're always a pleasure to talk to. Thank you.
Yeah. No, no, thank you, Sean. Thank you.
I hope your leg gets better too.
Okay. All right.
All right, mate. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye. You too.